Hello everyone, you're probably wondering, can Quest 3 run No Man's Sky better than Quest 2? What about the graphics? Does it even look better? What about the controller haptics, the immersion, the sound? Is it worth upgrading from Quest 2? How does Quest 3 stand versus the mighty PSVR2 when playing No Man's Sky? I'm going to answer all these questions and more, but first let's start with my overall impressions of Quest 3. Hello VR space lovers, welcome back. It's me, Has a VR Spaceman, and we'll dive in No Man's Sky in a moment, but let's take a few seconds to provide my overall impressions of Quest 3. Quest 3 is really an improvement compared to Quest 2 when played standalone, both in comfort and controllers. From the first moment I put it on, I felt much more comfortable and immersed than Quest 2. I tried some standalone VR space games like Vader Immortal and End Space, and they performed and looked significantly better on Quest 3 versus Quest 2. The graphics simply looked much more sharper and cleaner, and I'm having a good time with it. There is something about it that is just so enjoyable. I'm even able to play it with my glasses on, which was kind of impossible in Quest 2. Quest 3 focus a lot on AR, unfortunately, which is cool, but I have zero interest in. But it was nice to actually check my PC screen, and it changed some of the settings when I had issue with the headset without taking off my headset. Still, VR gaming is where I am interested. Alright, so let's dive back to No Man's Sky on Quest 3. This is on ultra high graphic settings. And then I'm going to provide a comparison with No Man's Sky on Quest 3 versus Quest 2 and PSVR2. So I have a current generation PC with an RTX 4070 Ti and Intel i7-13X CPU. The detailed specs are in the description, and I set the graphic settings to ultra graphic for all of the settings, from texture quality all the way to planet quality and volumetric effects. I'm using Cable and Steam VR, and I will try to do some videos about testing with Airlink later on. I started with anti-aliasing off, and then with anti-aliasing set to DLA. Both of them never worked on Quest 2, but I wanted to give them a try, but the results were pretty much the same. With anti-aliasing off, the game ran between 6 and 7 FPS. I was barely able to make it to the options screen, and with anti-aliasing set to DLA, the game ran somehow even worse with FPS between 4 and 5. Now, when I go back to the anti-aliasing set to DLSS, this is when we can actually play the game. The performance of the game finally ran on a stable frame rates between 60 to 80. The game ran mostly smooth, but there was still some occasional drops to mid 30s to mid 50s, but it was really mostly stable around 72. Graphics were okay, but they were not that great. With DLSS balance, the FPS drops a little bit. They were mostly standing around in mid 30s to early 40s, and I did not notice any improvement in graphics. It looked very similar to performance graphics to me. Finally, with DLSS quality, I noticed a significant improvement in the image quality, but a significant drop in the FPS. It ran between 20 to 40. I made a restart, it bumped a bit the FPS to early 30s, which is not the best experience in VR, but the game looked much better. If your PC is beefier than mine, they may be able to run on more stable frame rates than me, but for now I'm going to stick to DLSS performance. So, how does this stick compared to Quest 2? Quest 3 beats Quest 2 graphics on all DLSS settings, especially when it comes to text scanning. Even from the loading screen, the Quest 3 is simply sharper and more crisp. Objects close to you, like your multi-tool or your inventory menus, looks much more better on Quest 3. When it comes to FPS settings, now that's interesting because Quest 3 FPS are very similar to Quest 2 FPS, which are not surprising because you're using it as a PCVR and it all depends on your PC. But on the same settings and same PC, I found that Quest 3 run on a very similar FPS range. Actually, Quest 2 FPS are slightly higher sometimes. Now, Quest 2 have been around much longer and had many updates to stabilize and improve its PCVR experience, but I was just surprised to find this out. Worth mentioning that the Quest 3 controller haptics are a big improvements compared to Quest 2 simple rumbling controllers. Haptics play a big role in the overall VR experience for me, and I really like the Quest 3 controller so far. Also, the built-in speakers in Quest 3 is much more louder and crisper than the lame Quest 2 built-in speakers, but who uses the built-in speakers anyway? So now, how does this stick compared to PSVR2 with eye tracking and dynamic foveated rendering? For me, there is still a big difference. The PSVR2 version runs much more stable with minimum frame rate drops. There is no easy way to track the actual FPS on PS5, especially in VR, but in VR you grow very sensitive to frame rate drops. You actually feel it in your body. No Man's Sky on PSVR2 is very stable, I think mostly running around 60 FPS. The graphics on PSVR2 still beats Quest 3, even with cable on, even with DLSS quality setting and with all graphics set to ultra, and even with the GR80 filter set to ultra. PSVR2 version still looked better to me. Now keep in mind, as what you see in this video is different from what I see in the headset when playing, but the overall lighting, graphics and colors and shadows looked better on PSVR2. The quality DLSS setting on Quest 3 is not that far behind. Maybe someone with better PC specs can even get better results when it comes to performance and quality. The controller haptics of the Quest 3 is a big improvement, as I mentioned, versus Quest 2, and give a little bit improvement to immersion, but compared to PSVR2 overall haptic system still takes the lead, especially when it comes to the headset rumble that takes the immersion to a new level when you jet back or when you take off or you are entering the atmosphere. It took Hello Games 4 months to patch No Man's Sky on PSVR2 and turn on eye tracking, and I'm wondering if a patch dedicated to PCVR will come soon. I'm still going to play it more and do more testing, also experiment with AirLink, but overall I'm happy with No Man's Sky in Quest 3. Playing on PC can allow me to install mods and also engage better with the No Man's Sky building community on PC that have specific mods that we can't see them from playing on PlayStation. But so far, playing No Man's Sky on PSVR2 is still the ultimate experience. Quest 3, however, is a big improvement if you are planning to play stand-alone VR games or you are interested in mixed reality and color pass-through. But if you are playing it and planning to using it mainly as PCVR, I'm not really sure it's worth the investment just yet. I'm going to try other VR space games soon on Quest 3 and providing more impressions, so stay tuned. If you like this video or you want to learn more about space games in VR, then please don't forget to like and subscribe. This will help me a lot as a new content creator. Thank you for watching, and may your trips to space be filled with wonders, joy and discovery as mine.